Here's our King, King Jesus, Majesty. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. And you know what? It's that time of year again. The time that we all know. A time that many consider a necessary evil. Tax time. So I decided to talk about something that, myself included, I've grown over. But maybe we can glean something from the words of Jesus. Maybe we can. Let's see if we can. Mark, the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, verses 13 through 17. Mark, chapter 12, verses 13 through 17. The word of the Lord says this. Later they sent some of the Pharisees and Herodians to Jesus to catch him in his words. They came to him and said, "Teacher, we know that you're a man of integrity. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. But you teach the way of God in accordance to the truth. Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? Should we pay or shouldn't we?" But Jesus knew their hypocrisy. "Why are you trying to trap me?" he asked. "Bring me a denarius and let me look at it." They brought the coin, and he asked them, "Whose image is on this? And whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. Then Jesus said to them, "Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's." And they were amazed at him. As we consider the text, we first must set the scene. Verse 12 begins with setting the scene. Then the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders looked for a way to arrest him because they knew he had spoken the parable against them. But they were afraid of the crowd, so they left him and went away. It's the chief priests that were concerned about what was going on. So what the chief priests decided to do was send the Pharisees and the Herodians to trap Jesus. I think we know, at least in part, who the Pharisees are. Many of us who have been to church, Sunday school, for any length of time have heard who the Pharisees are. They truly were God-fearing men. They were. They followed the law of the Second Temple. There is only one God, and Tiberius is not it. Our allegiance is to God and God alone. That was essentially their statement. Not a bad statement. We think about that. Our allegiance is to God and God alone, not Tiberius. Well, who are the Herodians? It was a little more of a challenge to figure out. But who were they? Essentially, who the Herodians were is a loose group of individuals who followed King Herod Agrippa. That's who they were. They were Roman citizens some of them officials, but a loose group of people who followed and supported King Herod Agrippa. The priests called for them to witness Jesus' words. That's why they were there. They were called, once again, to hear what Jesus said. To witness Jesus' words so they could, or so Jesus could be legally charged with being a zealot. We talked about what a zealot was, or who a zealot was, a few weeks ago when we were talking about Easter. A zealot was someone simply who hated Rome, wanted nothing to do with Rome, and would do anything in their power, including assassinate or kill Roman leaders, to prove a point. When I made the statement a few weeks ago, they were, as we would see it in the 21st century, it was the Roman division's version of ISIS. That's who the zealots, as we could closely compare them to, were. And the chief priests, the Pharisees, were trying to get Jesus convicted of being a zealot. And as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, if you were accused, tried, and convicted of being a zealot, you hung on a cross in less than 24 hours. That was the plan. The Herodians and the Pharisees hated each other. I mean, they absolutely hated each other. But we've heard this statement, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Simply put, look, we can't stand each other, but both of us like this guy even less. Let's get rid of him. And so they tried. That's the scene. The tax. What are they talking about? It's the imperial tax. It's a tax that all conquered people in the Roman Empire had to pay. Now notice that I said conquered people. All people had to pay this except for naturally born Roman citizens. They were the people group that did not have to pay this tax. So if any other group had been conquered by the Romans, they had to pay this. That's essentially what the tax, the imperial tax, was. The coin. We see it. We see it in the verse quoted. Bring me a denarius. Verse 15. And let me look at it. This whole text, believe it or not, surrounds around this small object, the coin. You never thought you'd get paid to come to church. Pull out your coin. When I handed you a coin, the first thing, I have no idea what the first thing that went through your mind was, but I can guarantee it was something like penny. 1 cent. Not worth much. Or maybe even statements, a penny saved is a penny earned. Something like that. But when we are handed a penny, no matter where we are, we think of immediately its value. That's just how we think. Don't be afraid to look at your coin. And the reason I say that is because Jesus did. Jesus actually looked at the coin. Feel free to look closer. The face of the coin. Do we have it up? The face of the coin. This is actually a picture of a coin with Tiberius Caesar's face on it and the inscription. You're looking at a coin that Jesus would have looked at in the 1st century CE. This coin was printed between 14 and 37 AD or CE, however you want to call it. This is a denarius with Tiberius Caesar's face and inscription. So you're looking at the same thing Jesus would have. The inscription around here. Obviously, unless you know Greek, there's no way you can pronounce it. I'll tell you what it says. In Greek, it says this. Tiberius Caesar Divi Augusti Flavius Augustus. That's what it says. I'll tell you what it says in English. Tiberius Caesar, son of the divine, Augustus Augustus. What did it really say? Putting it in very similar language. Tiberius Caesar, Son of God. Did you catch that? Tiberius Caesar, the Son of God. Think about that statement for just a moment. On the back side of the coin, in the picture, another inscription. Maxima Pontius. Maxima Pontius. What does that mean in English? High priest. It means in English, high priest. Tiberius Caesar, the Son of God, and our high priest. That's what Jesus saw. In Jesus' response, he's addressing several issues here. And I think if you see what may be going on, the Son of God, Tiberius Caesar, also being claimed as the high priest of the known world, Jesus is addressing some issues here. And I want you to think about this for just a moment. We have two groups of individuals who hate each other, who are coming together to get rid of a guy that both of them can't stand. They're both asking a question, talking about the claimed Son of God, the claimed high priest, but they're talking to the real Son of God, the real high priest. Do you see the irony there? And they don't even know it. They're talking to the Son of God and the high priest, and they don't even know it. That's pretty ironic and amazing as as I think about it. We see in the English what Jesus' answer is. He answers and he asks, "Why are you trying to trick me? I know what you're trying to do." He asks the question, whose image is on this and whose inscription? We just went through it. And then he says, "Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's." A different way of looking at it, a different translation, a different thought. Jesus' unspoken answer, so to speak. This man, Tiberius Caesar, is a ruler. I'm not denying that, is what Jesus is saying. But he is not God. He's looking at a denarius. He's looking at a coin. And basically what Jesus really said was this. This man is a ruler, but he is not God. Give this piece of metal back to him as he sees fit. But I am the Son of God. And I say amen. That's what Jesus said. Give this piece of metal, give this worthless piece of stuff back to the ruler as he thinks he sees fit. But I am the Son of God. I am the high priest. That's powerful stuff. And the two groups sitting there missed it. They missed it. A challenge for us as we think about that. A challenging question. And the truth of the matter is, everyone who walks the face of this earth for all time, both in the past, present, and future, has a Son of God. Every person. It doesn't matter if you're Christian, Muslim, atheist, we all have a Son of God. The question is, who or what is our Son of God? Is our Son of God like that penny? Is it the almighty dollar bill? Do we live and breathe by the currency in our purses and our wallets? Our future? Is money our Son of God? What about the almighty stock market? Is the almighty stock market our Son of God? What about the almighty government? Sure, I go to church. Sure, I go to, but the stock market, the dollar, the government, that's what's going to save us. What about the presidential candidate that we hope for in our minds? Are they our Son of God? This person's going to give us jobs. Whoever that person may be that you support. What about almighty sports? Is sports our Son of God? Or our job? Do we live and breathe by our job and our job alone? Is that our Son of God? These next two get a little sticky because in and of themselves, everything that I've talked about isn't necessarily a bad thing. But when we put these things in front of Christ, we have a problem. Including our family. Is our family above Christ? Are they the Son of God? And how about even church? Is church above God, Christ? When we put these things, which aren't necessarily bad things, but when we put them above Jesus, then we've got a problem. Who is our Son of God? It could be anything. These are just some, I could keep going. But we need to think about who our Son of God is. And it's a challenge for us. And it's an opportunity. And who is our high priest? I'm saying this, and I know that this is true, and it's still hard for me, because I hope that the other person would say the same thing. Amanda is the second most important person in my life. And the truth of the matter is, I hope Amanda says the same thing. I do. I hope that she would look at me and say, Dan Clark is the second most important person in my life. Because I hope the most important person is Jesus. And through Christ, we are truly made complete. That's why Christ came. That's hard for me to say. But it's important. That's the way it is. I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay our taxes, obviously. But as we think about tax time, as we think about the things that we enjoy, as we think about the things that we value, as we think about the things that we love, we must put these in perspective. Who is Jesus to us? Is Jesus our Son of God? Is Jesus our high priest? It's a beautiful thing. It can also be a challenge. It is for me.